Thank you very much. Welcome to the Town of Milton School Building Committee. It is July 20th, 2026 at 7:03 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order. As typically we do, we take just roll call attendance. I'll call you out as I see on the screen. Scott Tereshak,
Present.
Peter Obersheimer,
Here.
Nathan Hutto,
Here.
Tim Lombard,
Present.
Aqua Bong,
Present.
Rob Mayhew,
Yeah.
and John Redden.
Here.
All right, cool. I think that is everybody that we had. Just double checking. All right, we'll get started. So the first thing that we have tonight on our agenda is citizen speak. I'll ask if you're here to speak that you please raise your hand. We denote the first 15 minutes of our meeting for any citizen that wants to speak and ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And if you do speak, just please state your name and address. So I'll give it a minute, see if anybody in the audience raises their hands. Not seeing any. All right, so we'll move on. The next item on our agenda is our meeting minutes. I'll apologize, I'm delinquent on that with my current work schedule and on vacation right now. At our next meeting, I'll have all our minutes up to date. So I apologize to our committee about that. But I think the main reason why we're all here is the next agenda item, which is new business, which is our Laborator update from DLR Group. So I know Jana and Shanali have been working on this, very hard over the past couple of weeks, and I know we're excited to kind of see what you have to present. So, Shanali, Jana, I'll turn it over to you two. And
Great, thank you.
if you can't present for any reason, just let me know, and I'll play with Zoom to get it to work.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Oh, sharing is not turned on.
Just give me 1 second, I'll get you.
Okay. Excuse me.
For the recording, do you want us to introduce ourselves? We could be doing that while.
Yeah, if you'd like to do that, I think that'd be fun.
Okay, so Jenna Silsby, client leader and project designer from DLR Group.
Hi all, I'm Shanali Rajani. I'm a project manager and senior associate at DLR Group, and we're going to be presenting our initial findings on the Labor College test fits for the pre-K and K this evening.
And the only other qualifier while she's bringing it up is this is sort of like a peek at what the draft will look like. So there are pages that you will not be able to read, and that's okay. We're just like letting you sort of understand the layout of the scope of what we're going to be including in the report. We will give you the PowerPoint, so as well as the documents we'll be following, and they are a draft, so you'll have an opportunity to comment and that sort of thing on what we're presenting tonight. And we will also be doing some refinements on our own. In 2 weeks, there was still things that we wanted to flesh out a little bit more that we didn't get a chance to.
Great. So just before we dive into it, just to let everybody know, I can't see anybody's faces once I'm sharing. So if you have any questions, please just jump in and ask any questions that you have.
Yeah, no, so you're okay with people just kind of chiming in during the presentation, Shanali?
I'm not bothered by that. I think that, it's better to continue with the questions while we have the slides up, or we could wait till after, whatever is everyone's more comfortable with.
Are you able to share? Because we're not seeing your screen yet.
I am sharing. Interesting. Let's try that again.
Yeah.
Is anybody else seeing it? I wasn't seeing. Now I'm seeing it. Now here it goes.
Okay.
Yeah,
there we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Yay.
Great. Okay. So we just put together a little agenda with those the slide deck because we will be emailing this out after this evening's conversation. So we're going to go over the schedule, some of the existing conditions that we've found. We're going to summarize the program and enrollment conversation that we had with the superintendent and Bernadette. And then Jana's going to jump into the options, and then we'll review the next steps. So, this was the schedule that we had shown last time, but I just wanted to highlight where we are. We're discussing the initial draft today. We received the initial structural draft report from Colleen. And then this evening after this presentation, we'll be sending off these two options to PMC to begin the cost estimate, which will be due in a week. And then we'll just continue working towards sending you the final report. This is two initial maps that we've done. One is just to indicate the travel radius from Labor Day to all of the other schools in Milton. So you can see this first radius is 1 mile, and then the second radius is 3 miles, just to give an overall understanding of where the college sits within all of your schools. It's pretty close relatively to all of the elementary schools. So as you're thinking about bringing the pre-K and K into Labor Day, we're not seeing a tremendous travel distance. It looks like Cunningham and Tucker are the furthest away. And Tucker, as we know, has the smallest classrooms. And then on the right is the initial site analysis, just understanding the orientation of the existing building and what that means for the way that we would site the addition if needed.
The only thing I will point out is in this plan, north is up. As we go into our options, we're flipping it on you. So it's as if you're standing at Adams looking back at the building. So north will be down.
So these are some of the existing photos that we had shown at last week's meeting, but I just want to include these for those members who were not at the last meeting, so they could just understand some of the things that we were pointing out. You know, we see the existing mansion and the connection to the addition, and then some of the long connector hallways. And just as a reminder to point out that in the mansion, that even the floor levels are not necessarily equitable all the way across, that we have steps going up and down, navigating throughout that piece of the building. And then here's some of the corners and connections of the B and C building, and then a view out so we can understand what's going on the exterior. And I'm not going to dwell too much on these, but these will be included in the slide deck. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. And then here we see the backside connection to the mansion, or rather the side connection of the mansion to the B to the C. And then this is one of the vestibules here. As you can see, the steps up connecting into the existing classroom. Here's a typical classroom. And then on the far right is the lift. So there is accessibility in this specific building. One of the initial things that we did with the structural engineer is to understand what is happening on the lower level in the boiler room, specifically that there is this boiler room that's double height, but its floor level is not at the same level as that ground floor. So what would happen if we wanted to infill it with a deck? We did find out that it's not a shear wall, so that we would need to put some posts here to support that deck, but it is in fact possible to build up this floor and turn this into usable space. One of the things that we're going to keep repeating throughout this evening is that we need to be cognizant of the use groups and the occupancy loads for the building, because we are changing the loads. The Library College has an estimated load above 500, and then the school sorry, 250 and then 500 for the students. And so that is actually good for us at the moment. That means we don't have, we don't change the risk factor in the project. And then before we go on to the next slide, just one thing to note is that the deck or the deck on the back of the mansion will need to be replaced, which I will touch on in 1 second here. So this is the draft report from Foley and Buell, which I'm not going to read all of the pieces, but I'm going to highlight where Colleen highlighted that there are failed wood members on the deck at the back of the back of the mansion. And so that will need to be replaced right away if you choose to pursue purchasing the property.
I will say though, it is just wood framing, so it's not a big deal. It's not like, oh my goodness, this is a lot of, intervention, but it should be replaced because literally it is hanging off, and that is an egress route from that portion of the building out of there.
So we also just reviewed some high-level understanding of what's going to happen with the change of occupancy. So a college is a use group B, and we'll be changing it to a group E. And a lot of the items that are listed on this particular slide deck already are occurring in the site, or we've taken into account in the design options. But I just wanted to make sure that people are aware that we have to be, there are sprinklers. It does in fact need to be a sprinklered building. There, we need to consider the plumbing fixture counts because we have little kids, and understanding what the occupancy load and what those fixture numbers need to be, excuse me. And then verifying the egress paths, making sure that we are complying with code. So some of these are just a list of the major points that we need to consider when we're doing test fits.
I will say though that the building is actually, other than the mansion, which is a wood structure, the building is actually pretty handicap accessible. When they did the intervention in 2013, they did upgrades that made it handicap accessible everywhere except for the mansion. The mansion being a wood building, you would not be able to put kids in there, but it could remain a B stands for business. So like a college is a group B, so is like administrative offices. So you could continue to use it, but you cannot take kids into the mansion. The structure wouldn't qualify for pre-K or K spaces. So whenever we're looking at the options, we're maybe pushing some say staff lounge or something like that, but we're basically keeping everything else. Anytime a kid needs to access it, even a principal's office, which a kid would need to be able to access, we are keeping it out of the mansion.
Okay. Just a quick question too, Shanali. So these items that you list here, I'm assuming these are inputs for what you guys did as far as draft, these draft plans, for example, like plumbing fixtures and stuff like that.
Yes.
The slides we see coming up incorporate all these things. These are points that you guys use to develop your concept.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So very much understanding what the egress is, the accessibility, and understanding the amount of square footage needed to be dedicated to plumbing fixtures are the primary things that you're going to see visually.
Yep.
This is the planning document that we discussed last time. I kept it in, but just understanding what John Phelan and Bernadette Butler had asked for or provided us in terms of their space needs. And so we took that information, and in further discussions, I will come back to this slide in 1 second. We calculated out this spreadsheet. So Jana, feel free to jump in anytime because there's a lot of information here. But go ahead.
So one of the things that we talked about in the meeting was, all right, there's a certain number of kids now. Basically there's 90 students that are pre-K. There's 361. Although we do need to understand whether or not the 360 is a 352 and it's inclusive of the 9, or is it 361 and the 9 is an addition to the general population. So that's a point of clarification, but that number won't won't impact too much the numbers that are on the right, which are the results of when you do the math, like how many spaces do you need? What was requested for teaching spaces was 21. It was actually, you got a number wrong there. It's 7 at the top there, not 3. I think your formula, but it's 7 plus 18, which is 21. And we also talked about, though, like looking to the future, you typically don't want to max out your spaces. It's usually customary to do somewhere between an 85 and 90% utilization. That would put us at, instead of calculating the number of spaces needed by 22 students, which is a maximum, we also looked at it using 19. I see Jonathan has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the 9's in addition. It's a sub-separate max number for a sub-separate classroom at that kindergarten level.
Okay, you think it is an addition. In some districts,
They would need a space, sorry.
In some districts, when they do the math, they actually always guarantee a seat in a regular classroom. And that just allows them to have flexibility to pull a student into a regular classroom without going over the capacity of that class at like 22. In other districts, and depending on the age and the nature of the disability, they don't. But I do wanted to make sure. So it sounds like the 361 is the number. So when we then looked at what's in the red column, we actually used the 19 students instead of 22, and we used 16 for the pre-K to do the calculations so that we had a little fluff. You'll notice that instead of 7 classrooms, it actually tipped up to 9. We kept the 2 special ed. The other thing that we did is we assumed all day, because we were wanting to sort of have a highest end of the range and a lowest end of the range. And so we also, like, what if you went to all day preschool for everyone? And that's how we got 9 plus 2 special education, as opposed to the 7, which is 4 at half day, 1 in full day, and 2 at special education. The other thing that we did then in kindergarten is we used that 19 number instead of the 22, which gave us, instead of 18 classrooms, 21, including 20 general and 1 special ed. One thing I do want to point out is that we then did the math using MSBA's numbers. MSBA uses 8% to calculate how many special education students we should consider. And it did then produce the need for 1 more special education classroom. So I do want everybody to go back, talk about that. Is it better to carry the extra special education for the future or not? Remember, this is all just on paper. But the difference then is 32 and 34. Now, we're going to show you a couple options. One option is just showing you what can fit in the existing building with very limited additions. We're only doing additions to get a little bit better entry, as well as adding a stair, because we need to add a stair since we can't go through the into the mansion. The other option is actually doing a full-blown addition to get the entire program. But what I just want to point out is the difference between the 21 versus the 32 is the number of stories the addition would require. It just kind of worked out
And
that
sorry, Jana, just to chime in real quick. So just the math in the blue box that you're looking at. So as you mentioned, the total number of pre-K rooms should be 7, not 3, right? And then the total number of rooms at the bottom should actually be 25, not 21.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Yes. So anyway, it worked out that I can fit the 25 with 2 stories, and then the third story gets you up to the 32. Does everybody understand this concept of just using 85%, 80 to 90% utilization as a way to calculate the classrooms, which means that you need more classrooms for that number of students? It just gives you a little bit of fluff. It means that you're not maxing out based on your current enrollment, i.e. you don't have a seat if somebody new would show up in the district and need it. Are there any questions about that, about how we got from the 25 to the 32? Okay.
I don't see any hands raised, so I think we're
Okay.
good.
Great.
All right.
Okay.
So this is the option that is not building anything but the most barest minimal additions. We have added over on the far left on each floor, you'll see there's a yellow rectangle. That is a stair. Because we cannot egress students through the mansion, which is the current means of egress, we need a stair, we need a way out. And so, because the ground floor, that far end there, we want to be able to get, people out at that end. The middle floor, the level 2, actually egresses out the front. So technically, I didn't have a dedicated corridor getting to that stair, can technically skip that level. If it's an open office, because that's where in this option where the admin is, the main admin that in the nurse suite that the students would be accessing. If it's kind of open concept in that front, you'd still be able to get to that stair. So if somebody was coming down from using it as a convenience stair, they could. And then the only other addition I added is that the property drops off to the back. So there's a basically almost a grade change, not quite, but almost a grade change between the front of the building and the back of the building. And so we've provided a entry over there on the left, and you can see it manifest in the middle plan where we added, and again, this is a very crude diagram. I threw in a ramp and a new terrace, as well as then an entry sequence that allows you to have a lobby. This is where that floor was infilled. Instead of having the stairs going up into the building, we actually capped it off. We infilled that floor. So instead of it being double height, it actually has a floor and it continues. That picked up a classroom, as well as allowing for this entry sequence to work outside of the building instead of inside the building. That was one of the reasons why we had Colleen Cole from Foley, Buell, and Roberts look at this, is because we actually thought that it was that all of the mechanical pieces that are in that space currently are going to be pulled out, and modern day equipment is actually much smaller than those very large boilers that used to be in there, and you won't need the double height space any longer. There's also underneath where the new lobby is there's an existing oil tank, so there's already footings there. So it's kind of taking advantage of the footings from the oil tank room that's underneath there to create this addition. And then I made it just 2 stories so that we could actually, gain a little bit of teaching and learning space on the upper floor. If you want to now go through, we're going to go through each floor so you can kind of see a little bit more detail. So this is that lower level. There's actually an entrance at the back next to the staff restrooms and teacher planning that's on grade and is handicap accessible. The X there on the right is the elevator that goes all 3 floors. When you get to the link between the C building, which is the back building, and the B building, which is where you see the words warming kitchen, there's actually a lift and some steps, because the floor to floors on the B building is much lower than the floor to floors on the C building. So it isn't contiguous except for at the 2nd floor. There's also an egress out the stair at the half landing at the top of the page. And then of course we would have the egress at the new stair going out the front there. So basic color coding. Darkest purple is special education pre-K rooms. Lighter purple are just general pre-K classrooms. Anything that's that orangey color is like a teacher space or an admin space or something like that. Anything that's gray is building services. It might be staff restrooms in the case up there. It might be a mechanical space. It might be an IDF for like your telecom and things like that. In this option, we are putting a warming kitchen down in the bottom of building B. It is very small, it is very tight, but what it'll mean is that you're cooking somewhere else and you're bringing over just meals that are pre-prepared on carts, and then they're going to get distributed. And given that this space here is, you can get to it, we could like create a new like way in using the windows that are facing the other building over there. There's quite a few windows. We feel like we could actually get somebody could back up nearby, unload and get into that warming kitchen, because there is technically not a loading dock in the existing building, but we felt like we could do something there. And there are no windows then, like that pre-K classroom faces to the left. It doesn't have windows looking down into that area. So we felt like that would be a place where we could. And then you see the outline of that oil room where the tank is. And that is then forming the foundation for the addition above. So on the next floor up, the dashed line on those plans is also just a fire reminding us that we are going to have to just ensure that we have a 2-hour rating between any building that's used by the kids and the mansion. It's actually probably pretty good already because the B building has a lot of masonry that's already separating it from the mansion already. So it's just a matter of making sure we add doors and double check and make sure that we have fireproofing, as well as, just in between the floors, making sure everything is kosher. But it's not like we have to build a whole bunch of structure. It's just making sure that what's there is sealed. On this floor, then, it is utilizing the existing entry there, facing the parking lot that is currently used. It currently has a ramp that is handicap accessible. You come in, and then the front office and nurse would be there. You can see that I've also distributed other offices around, and then anything that would be just teacher function, we would be hoping to populate inside the mansion. So in any place that the kids would not have to go, like a teacher lounge. The good news is this is one floor that is contiguous. You can actually walk all the way through the mansion, as well as you can walk all the way back to from the B building to the C building, and you're at one level. This is the only floor that does so. Everywhere else, you've got steps up and down at various points, and lifts. On this floor, the color coding is anything that's a special, like library, art, or music, is the pink. So here we've got a very small library space. It's a very small space. It's just for somebody to be able to have a collection of books that they would then distribute around. It's not actually the size of a normal library. Anything that's in the dark teal is some sort of special education function, resource room, small group rooms, and this floor is also OTPT. And then the lighter teal is just a general kindergarten classroom. You'll see that there's various things that says toilets and staff restroom. That's, shared toilets between the two classrooms when it's appropriate. And then there's some breakout space, the yellow that's in the corridor, is a place where we would have some breakout space, and we might do a little distributed lending library there, or possibly even have some tables and other kinds of things, since this would not be able to have all of the program that was requested in this option. So if we go to the top floor, top floor, very similar to the floor below. Resource room is the part of the new addition, and as well as resource room at the other end. So you kind of got the resource rooms flanking each one. You have a special education classroom, as well as the K classroom. So there's a total of 10 Ks, 1 special ed, and then there is 5 pre-Ks and 1 special ed. So you're a little bit shy of the 7 in this option. On this floor, then, you have art and music. Now, technically, if you decided you didn't want to do a big addition, technically, I guess you could fit 1 more classroom here, because the art and music, first of all, it's combined. But second of all, you could just change that into a classroom if that was more valuable, and you could have then, the teachers pushing into the classroom for those kinds of things. It does not, though, get you to your program, which is the 25 classrooms that was requested. So by no stretch of the imagination can you get, a classroom that is sized for kindergarten or pre-K. Can you get that many in the existing building? So any questions about this? And again, we just did this because we wanted you to see what you could fit, and have a jumping off point. And by the way, okay, Nathan, yes?
Yeah, thanks for this overview. So we don't have to if this can't accommodate the program that was proposed, we don't have to belabor these points too much, but can you just remind me, I'm sorry if I'm making you repeat yourself, where students would arrive and depart into this building, and then where visitors would also do the same?
Okay, so back one floor, she's now back at what we're calling level 2. It is at grade towards the front. So there is a ramp. I don't know if you can, I can maybe annotate. So there's a ramp right here. That's an existing ramp, and you're going in here, and then you would go into the front office. Students could also arrive going up this ramp, and I got to be honest, there would also be some stairs going here, so that you could get up to this new terrace. This is a new entry lobby, so then they could also come here. So what that would mean is, like, depending on, like, you might have buses coming and kids going to one place for a bus. In a bus, you might have parents dropping off and going to another place. So I also then just want to go back one more floor. You are also at grade here. This is a handicap entrance right there. So that's another place that kids, without going up any stairs or anything like that, could egress and exit.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, one more. The new stair, the yellow structure in the bottom, that's added purely because we need an additional point of egress from the building, from the top floor down.
Mm-hmm. From the top floor and from this lower floor.
Got it.
Yeah, there already is an area well with stairs, but it's not as wide as it should be for the population that we would have, given that they cannot. So right now, part of the egress goes here and into this stair, but you can't do that. We're not allowed to take kids that way. So instead of, some of it currently goes out the area well, and plus we need to gather what's on the upper floor as well and egress. So it would not have to be a super big stair, but we do need a way out of there, especially at the top floor.
Got it. Thank you.
I think Peter has a question as well.
Peter?
Two different questions. One, I think you just answered this, but I just want to be sure, and I also think you touched on this last meeting. The entry floor is the level 2, is that right? So you don't have a situation where the kindergartners have to walk up 2 flights, is that right?
Yes, if we enter at the middle, some kids would have to go up a floor, some kids would stay on grade, and some kids would go down. Because, though, you also have the entrance at the back, you could have all your preschoolers enter, like, it could be the sequence of drop-off for the preschoolers or pre-K kids to drop off at the back. So they would also not have to even go up any stairs, and they could get into their classrooms directly from the back. And that's, the younger kids, sometimes they have car seats and strollers and other things like that. So it's not unusual for them to have a different entry sequence than, say, a kindergartner. And it's just a matter of, setting those noses out and timing.
Thanks. And the other, you said this doesn't have the 25 classrooms. Is there a number you think of with this option, or does it depend on how you move the puzzle pieces around? Is it like 23, or what is?
So you have 6 classrooms for the pre-K instead of 7. And then we have 10 plus 1, so call it 11. The 11 one is the special ed. If you go to the next floor up, Shonali, you can see that there's a special ed classroom there. So it's 5 plus 5 plus the special ed classroom. So that's 11. If you wanted to sacrifice the art and music room, you technically could get 12, but then you have no specials at all. Like, there's no room that's not literally being occupied, like, all parts of the day and night. The other thing is that the kids will be eating in their room. There is a little bit of yellow space where they could come out and maybe have some dining. Like on this floor, there's a little more room. On the floor below there, I segmented out a little bit of yellow, but it's not it's not a real dining area. It's literally you're taking carts, you're delivering it to the classroom, and most everybody is like eating in their classroom.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Sean?
Yeah, and just for clarity, Jenna, just for, for other people or the public that may be following along. So you guys presented on the spreadsheet like a maximum number of classrooms that could be there, but these past three slides are not reflective of those numbers, right? This is just,
No.
yep, this is what with minimal additions to the building, what we could get from this building, with that. Okay, thank you.
And it's basically taking the existing structure. Like I said, even the little addition where it's the office and new lobby is building on existing foundations. Like the only new foundation, the only new square footage is the new stair over on the left. Everything else is built on something that already exists and making the building function as best we can with the existing footprint. So then let's take a look at the other option. So this is the site plan. You can see the dashed line going around. That's our actual property line. You'll also see some faint light black lines. On the side is a 15-foot setback, and I just wanted to, as I was doing the planning and understanding how close we were getting to that. The yellow is the addition. The white is the existing building. Actually at the ground plane, you can see there at the third floor, it actually sticks out a little bit further out the back. And then the green that I've added are places where we would be re-landscaping to create play. You can see that couple of things. One, I pulled the new building forward. Two reasons. The further forward I go, the wider my site is, so it gives me more breathing room to go out and around. The second thing is I actually was very careful about avoiding the tree canopy. Like all of my footings and everything, they say that the root structure for most trees, if you go outside of the tree canopy, you can actually save those trees, and we could actually do this option building into the hill. It actually is at grade towards the tree and towards the back. So there are some classrooms in the lower floor for this option, but we would be getting rid of some of the parking, and the beigey color on the right is actually just a crude driveway going around. Ironically, if you look back though at like Google Images from like 2005, the drive did do this originally. Is this, there was a lot more green space, a lot less parking. Probably the college needed a lot of parking. A college like that probably needs more parking than a school does. For the 500 and some like 37 students, I'm guessing that we would have like 130 staff, about a 1:4 ratio. So I feel like we would have plenty of parking doing this. The other thing is that then the service is there where the beige meets the building on the right-hand side. So your service is, there we go. I had to find my thing. So that's the service. So you could, at the lower level, there'd be a little bit of retaining wall that would actually then be lower by quite a bit. If you look at I don't know if you can see this, but like, see this like jaggedy line? So that is a grade line, and we have on this drawing every 10 feet. So between here and basically call it the front of the building, even though technically it shows it going through the building, but like going through the building and then coming out and over so it's 70, 60, and then 50 at the back. So basically it's a 20, from front of the building to the back of the building or property is a 20-foot drop. Between the front of the building here and the back is about a 10-foot drop. That's what I was saying, is it's about a 1-story. So that's how we're building this yellow into the hill. And so what you see from the road is only 2 stories. So this is again, just a site plan. The main entry is there at the red arrow, new main entry. We still would keep the egress and other access points, but the front entry there where the new red arrow is would be more prominent in the way that it was architecturally. It would also probably have a canopy and those kinds of things. So if we go then to the next plan. So this is the lowest level. So it's level 1. It's at grade at the back. It's built into the hill at the front. So receiving is the gray at the far right. Then the next gray is a full working kitchen, as well as some storage and things like that. You have 4 pre-K classrooms facing the big tree out the back in the new addition, with small group rooms and toilets in between them. And then the extra yellow in the middle is actually like their dining area. It's distributed dining. And for those of you that attended, we talked about with the superintendent and Sean and everyone, we talked about having distributed dining because one of the things it takes little kids a long time to go up and down stairs. So the kids from the other wing would come to that dining, but it is on each floor. So then in the existing, we have a similar layout that you saw before where you have 4 pre-K classrooms, 2 special ed classrooms, another pre-K classroom. So this gets you a total of your 9. And again, if we decided we didn't want that many, you could start, the pre-Ks that are facing the tree back here, the new ones, could become Ks. So we would then just have the 5 plus 2, which is the 7. But if we had the 9 plus 2, this is what it would look like. So again, when we actually submit this, I'll show you the 2 options. I'll actually do the option 2A and option 2B, one being 2 stories and one being 3 stories. But then we still have our stair over on the left, but otherwise it looks very similar to what you just saw. Nathan?
Thank you. I heard you say one of the gray spaces was a full kind of full service kitchen, but I missed what the other one was.
Receiving and general storage. So when they come in here, trucks can unload, and then
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And they're probably also a little bit of mechanical and other things like that, but mainly when you look at the square footage, it's mostly receiving and stuff like that.
Got it. Thank you.
Are we ready to go up to the next floor?
I think Sean has a question.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Sean, I did not see that. Sorry.
No problem. So for the stair that's being added on the, call it east side, which is the left side because we're looking south, right?
Yep.
Have you guys looked at the impact on the perimeter road around that? Essentially, can the road still remain, or does that become a pinch point where you won't have a full loop?
You should, again, without having an actual survey and without knowing this,
Yep.
I'm imagining that stair is not a switchback stair. I'm imagining it's actually just a straight run stair, and then the other one would be disconnected going, like the one from the ground floor would be disconnected going up out the back, and the one from the upper floor would be going towards the front. And so you'd be taking advantage of the grade, and you'd only be going like a story and a half down. And I actually think it could be pretty narrow. I actually think that
Okay.
it needs to be wider than the existing, but not as wide as like the other stairs. And without a survey, I don't know, but we are still, we're within striking distance. I think we could make it work. And if we had to shift it
Okay.
down a little bit to like, because again, because the property line is angling away from the building, just shifting it up in the other direction could make all the difference in the world. I was just trying to preserve windows.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. The other than pink down here, in addition, I didn't talk about that. That's actually a library. There's 3 specials and they're all very similar in size, with the idea that then we're doing distributed reading areas that's in the various learning pods. So this one on this floor for this option, I said, okay, it's a library. It could also be art, but in this option, I said it's a library because the art library and art are very similar in size when that's when you're doing the distributed learning and lending areas. So let's go to the next floor plan up. So now we're at grade. Now this little red arrow out here in the front, that orange is your main office as well as health suite. There are still other distributed offices around. Right next to it is the big area for like dining for this floor, open dining, but then it has the multi-purpose room, which is the gross motor room. It's about 4,000 square feet. We also then have occupational therapy across the way, allowing them to access and use the gym when needed. And then we have 4 kindergarten classrooms plus the 5, so 9, plus some additional resource room, like a resource room over here, as well as a special education classroom as well. And then the pink over on this side is art. So we've got art and gym and OTPT on this floor. Library is, sorry, not OTPT. OTPT is next to it. This is music. So we've got art at one end, music, gym. And again, the idea would be as if you wanted to put like a tiny little stage or something in there, we could think about having how they could like maybe have some little tiny performance or puppetry or other things like that. And your music room is there on the corner as well. So the rest of the space looks very much like the other option you just saw, with the teal and the lighter teal and darker teal being special education space versus general kindergarten spaces. And then we have one more floor. So now the gym has, I won't call it double height. We'll probably do like a floor and a half, but it would still limit. So that X in the middle of the addition is because it's going above the floor height. Trying to keep the floors lining up with the existing building is one of the reasons why we are going to at least do a floor and a half, if not a full 2 stories for that space, so that there's a little bit of extra room there. And then you have your additional classrooms. This is the floor that if we said we wanted to basically not do as many classrooms, you could put 4 of these classrooms downstairs. We could rejigger some things and rethink how some things are distributed. And you would lose the 3rd floor of the addition if you wanted to. This is the full program, though. This is the larger program, not just the 25. And then again, the rest of it looks very similar to the other option, except for this did become another kindergarten classroom on this side, instead of the art music room in the option 1 that I showed you. But otherwise, it's the same. Nathan?
The yellow space is, you said, distributed lunchroom, basically.
So corridor and distributed lunchroom. New corridor. Okay. This space here in particular is where we would have distributed like dining on each of the 3 floors.
Should we think about that as like, in addition to dining, like general flex space, or is it pretty much
Absolutely.
If it's set up as dining, it's dining and that's it?
Nope.
No. Okay.
And what we'll include, we didn't include it here, but we actually have models where we've done that, and it becomes a place where if somebody needs to do a pull out or something like that, they can. If you want to like build have a little puppetry or have somebody do a reading for this grouping of kids, you can bring them out. If all sorts of different things. Yes, it's absolutely a flexible space. But by having the 3 different zones, it does give you just a little more relief. And there is then the opportunity over here as well, in the same way that on the other plan, to have a little bit of that going on here, which just allows you to not everything being quite so tight. And the other option in the existing building where we're just trying to get as much program as we possibly can, everything is really tight.
Yep. I have a couple of questions about grade. I can hold on to those if there's a better time to ask them.
I don't know does anybody else have anything else that they want to, but go for it.
So you said that there's pretty meaningful grade change on this property from Adams Street back. The grade declines, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking at all of the cement in the front half of the property. Like, how should we be thinking about water management, water penetration that may already be happening in the building? Like what is that of concern with this, or is that managed in other ways already? Or will we have to think about that?
So it's kind of a wash as far as how much pervious versus impervious, because there's so much underneath the existing building. And if you can see here, there's an existing parking lot here, and then this parking lot actually connects through and is here. When you do the math, we're actually turning some of it back into grass and soil, and where water can perk into the soil. So the impervious versus pervious is almost a wash. What I would want to have a deep conversation though is like, can we get rid of more of the parking over here on the right? Like, can we get rid of some of the parking even in the front? Like, I would love to just have a more generous like green space and rethink how this parking works. And obviously, you still need to make sure that your drives and everything work. But I'm not sure that we need just that much parking. And I do think that we should just look very carefully at how many spaces do we actually need. I don't know if there's if it's like, is all of this parking? I'm assuming since it's on this property, it's for this property. But I didn't know if there was any sort of like agreements, because they show this way through here almost as if it's a roadway. Like it even had a name on it as if it were a roadway that going through there back to the other school. So we just would want to double check that. Like that would be the kind of thing that as you look to on whether or not you want to purchase it, just understand if there's any agreements, and if those agreements would carry over to a new owner. Are they actual deeds, or is it just a casual kind of thing? But I think it would be great if we could get more green space, and then the rest of it of what we would collect on the roof. There's all sorts of things we could do. We could irrigate the landscaping. I've actually done gray water systems where we've flushed toilets in schools with the gray water. And I mean, sometimes people have pause when the kids are this little, but we did have a gray water system in a pre-K and preschool at the school I did in Cambridge. I don't know if Sean has opinions about gray water systems and that sort of thing or not, but
I'll hold that till the next phase.
okay. But at the very least, you can always collect it and use it for, to irrigate the landscaping that you're creating. Yep, Peter?
Just while we're looking at this visual, I'm curious what outdoor play space you had in mind, or I mean, are we at that phase to think about stuff like that yet, or is it early?
That is why I actually wanted to gain the green space. I see this entire area here as play space. The other thing I did here is this green here can be accessed from the lower level. That is a courtyard that's actually sunken. It's an existing courtyard. And once on that floor, one floor lower, you can actually get through here and into that courtyard space, as well as over here. You probably need to ramp over there, but there is a way. And so that can be another outdoor space. There's opportunity then, if the receiving is clear over here on the right, then we can even work outdoor learning areas into every nook and cranny, including even just looking at how we would deal with these kind of spaces. And then, like I said, I would really like to get some additional here so that you would just have some green buffer that would improve the curb appeal. But yeah, I think that there's lots of opportunity. And once we know how much parking we need in a more real way, the more we would know. But that is why I put the green space back there, is so that we would have a true play space with the shade of the tree during the times of year when you want it. I mean, playing around that tree would just be amazing.
And is that area potentially flat enough for a small playground?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Especially over here, it gets pretty flat right in this area. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Absolutely. But I will say that little kids love playing on hills, and you can incorporate play structures into that. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Any other questions, or you want us to go back or
I've got
forward?
Yeah, I've got one, Janet, too, and it might be on some of your closing slides, but for you guys, do we have estimates for how much square footage is being renovated and how much square footage is being added or as part of this?
So I know, so the existing building, the assessor says that it's roughly 60,000, just over, call it round numbers, 61. So the other thing that the difference between the program that I got from Bernadette and John is it was very, very light on administrative, like speech pathologists and itinerant staff. Like, is the director going to go? Conference rooms, it asked for some resource rooms, which I gave, but like just in general, copy rooms, those kind of rooms were not in, were very limited. And when I did it based on the MSBA, the way that they allocate rooms for something this big, we need somewhere between 85 and 87,000 square feet for the full blown program. Obviously, if we back off and only do the 25 classrooms and not the full, then obviously just the number of classrooms. But ironically, their assumptions based on staff are probably not that different, except for the diminishing number of classrooms for the half day versus the full day. Because obviously you have overlap the minute you separate them and they're, have their own space all day long, then they need more staff. So I don't know that the support space is going to be that much less, but obviously it will, reduce it by probably like 25%. The problem is that 14,000 square foot of it is approximately the mansion, and it is unusable. Like, we can't put kids in there other than some, admin. You can't put kids in there. So instead of starting at 60,000 or 61,000, subtract out 14, and that's what you actually have. So we're about at 40, call it 40,000 square feet. And we need somewhere between, call it, 65 to 85, depending on how many classrooms, which is why there is a substantial. Right now, this addition is about 47,000 square feet. Now, these are all rough numbers. We will give you this. This will be part of, the refinement and actually giving you all those numbers. But it is a substantial addition. The 3-story addition is substantial and is actually greater square footage than the usable square footage in buildings B and C. And that's because the mansion is unusable. The other thing is that I believe that 60,000 square feet accounts that basement. And we all know that basement does not have head clearance unless you're pretty short. So that's the other thing, is when they say on the assessor's number of 60,000 square feet, I believe that includes the basement. Both basements, actually, the basement in the mansion as well as the basement below the lowest occupied floor of the C building.
And then just kind of one follow-up too. So for the floor plans that are being shown now, in your table, you had an MSBA option that added a couple rooms. Is that reflective in these floor plans? Excellent. Thank you.
No, but I did have a little bit of fluff. I could get another, I need to go back through and see how much. The part that I didn't do, Sean, just full disclosure, is I did not see how many of the uses could actually fit in the mansion. And line by line say, yeah, that's like totally private. Like, there's a records room. Kids don't need to go in there. I did not do that. So I don't know how much of this orange I can decant into there. The other thing is that even when you're looking at this, that orange next to the white, that white is a terrace. That's like pulled back. I could get another classroom there. I would be totally within striking distance of getting those 2 extra classrooms. If you told me that that's something that was important, or if you wanted the extra special education classroom, we could make that work because there's a little bit of fluff here that I can work that in. And we're talking it's modest square footage. If I'm able to decant some of this and put it into the mansion.
Okay, thank you.
I'll do an accounting of it in a more accurate way and give you that number of what I think that you actually could use the mansion for.
Okay. Not sure if anybody else has other questions, or is this Jenna Shanali, is this the last slide on floor plans?
Yeah, this is the
Okay.
last slide. And then just the next thing we want to talk about is next steps.
Yep.
So
just
yeah, so basically Jen and I are going to email this slide deck to you probably in the morning. And by roughly Thursday, if we could get any of your comments in so that we could incorporate them for the final draft. We will be doing a rough tally of the square footage in the morning to send off to Peter Bradley at PMC, where he's going to do a cost estimate on the 2 options. If there's anything that comes in from your comments on Thursday, we can certainly discuss it with him if it impacts the way that he does the pricing, or the estimate. So this slide deck will also go to him, and we'll have a conversation and page through of sort of the expectations of how we want the estimate to be done. We'll incorporate your comments, and then we'll refine the plans and the narratives, and then wrap it up and send it to you. I actually forgot the date that I had on the schedule. And then it should be ready for you to present to.
Before we send you the PowerPoint, we'll also fix that. We'll fix that.
Yeah, I'm going to fix it
slide.
in the morning. That's why I was hedging to say to send it out in the morning. So I believe your next meeting is August 3rd, and so we will present the final draft then.
The only other thing I would also say, Sean, is I'm going to send you a copy of the full program that we created based on sort of like expectations of MSBA, but also I met with our early childhood expert and compared it to several other programs. But I do want you to I want everybody to look at it and think again, 15 years in the future, how many classrooms make sense? How many preschoolers? Are we going to full day? Is that something? And even if you don't think so now, is it a possibility in the future? As well as then the administrative. I've color coded it with the full MSBA program / what we input, because MSBA, quite frankly, doesn't do pre-K in that way. I highlighted one color, like all of the admin areas that was requested. I've left in white what would normally be included, and then I've also added some yellow on some things that I think should be added just based on experience. And like for instance, you may need for this number of students itinerant staff coming in from other places. Like if you may need some other kinds of things like that that have not been captured. And at the very least, they usually need some kind of small office with a place where they can have a place to lock up their stuff. Even if it's not theirs every single day, it's a place that they know that they can go, they have access, they lock things up, and then they can, go and push into the various classrooms and that sort of thing. I want somebody to just go through it and say, yes, this makes sense. Or no, you guys have way overshot. We are going to have much leaner and meaner. And honestly, I will also then indicate whatever I feel I can go in the mansion, because you might as well use the mansion if you were going to get it. So that you may not strike it because like if it fits in the mansion and there's nothing else to go there, it may be just okay. The other thing is though, is when you see that list and you understand how much square footage is in the mansion, if there's any other uses, like where do your facilities folks currently go? Even superintendent's office and things like that. Is it like, would one floor of this building be appropriate for something like that? Think about, because it's so much square footage that if you don't utilize it, then it's like, does it make sense to, it may be the tipping point of why it may or may not make sense to buy the property.
Yeah, and just some context to more for other members of the school building committee too. Like, the task that we asked the LR group to do, and just to keep everybody kind of focused, is, this is a conceptual program that we're doing right now to kind of provide input to the select board for the purchase of this property. This is not defining, exactly what is going to be built there. And I think that was a key point when I met with the school committee, when they were looking at this program. Things could change. It could be something else, after we purchase the property. But the task, or at least, what we're asking DLR group to do, and honestly, Jenna, Shanali, I want to thank you guys. It's middle of summer. We're asking you to put stuff together, very quickly in a very tight timeline. So I appreciate all the work you guys done. But the reality is, what you are presenting here could change in the future, after the purchase. So I want everybody just to be clear that this task is here to provide a waypoint, for the decision makers in the town, whether they want to purchase the property or not. So I wanted to give that as like context too.
Just in terms of the next steps page, which you don't need to go back to, but I don't know if this has been discussed, but I think you guys should think about being available for the August 4th select board meeting, the following night. And maybe if that's not already been decided that you guys would participate, maybe Sean, you can talk to Nick sometime, but it seems like a very logical idea to me if people are available.
Yeah, Pete, Mr. Milano is on the call, so I'm sure.
I didn't even see that. Okay.
Yeah, we can touch base with him, and I would definitely. I think that was one of the things that when we were discussing the contract with DLR Group, is to have them present this to select board, so it wouldn't just be me also.
Yeah, I think that was always sort of my understanding, but I just it wasn't clear to me. If just want to put that date out there now, if you guys weren't planning on it. So,
okay.
The other thing that I would request for the select board, like I have to do all these plans so that I can get my head around what is going to fit and what's not going to fit, and sort of like how it would fit on the site and the setbacks and all that kind of stuff. That may not be what they're interested in at all. They may be more interested in like the numbers. The existing building is this much of it. This much of that square footage is basement. This much square footage of that is mansion. This is how much usable square footage can be used for pre-K. This is how much an addition would need to be if you did 25 classrooms. And this is how much square footage an addition would be if you did the 30 some, odd classrooms. Tell me how to, like, they may not be interested in all the colored plans and all that kind of stuff. I don't know.
So I think what I can do, Jenna and Shanali, between the three of us, I presented to select board a number of times, and yeah, I agree. Getting down to the weeds with some of the stuff, because we won't have an hour to kind of present all this stuff. I'll work with you guys on how we scale it down, and then kind of keep call it on the side reference slides that will be there, that if things come up, we can kind of pull those up fairly quickly. So happy to work with you guys on that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions from members, or Shanali, you were indicating next steps. Anything else on your next steps, or anything you need from the committee?
I think the immediacy is for Jen and I to pull this slide deck together for Peter Bradley, and then for you all, we will send this out, and then you all to take a deeper dive into it and come back to us with any of your comments, if we're on the right track to keep continuing down this path and refining, or if there is something that, like Janice said, is the small too small or is the big too big? Like it's good for us to know that now, because basically by the early next week, we're going to be wrapping up the final report. So it would be good to have those comments in as soon as possible.
Okay, great. Any other questions from members or anything like that before we kind of move on? Hearing none. All right. Shanali, Jana, again, thank you guys very much. Appreciate all the work. You guys are welcome to stay on, for the remainder of the meeting, or feel free to jump off if you like.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. So the next on our agenda is our MSBA update. So just letting members know, we had myself, Town Administrator Nick Milano, and our representatives from PMA Consulting, Sean Burke and Seamus, did the presentation to MSBA, I think last week. We received approval from MSBA that PMA is acceptable. They've approved them. So, we're working on a contract with them currently. And I believe our next step is PMA is drafting a request for services for an architect. And our intention now, talking an alternate path, is to, go ahead and try to onboard an architect through MSBA's selection, and that's through their designer selection panel. PMA has put together a kind of a draft schedule. We'll invite them to our next meeting. I know this is going to be a minor point tonight, so I didn't invite them. But at our next meeting, they can come on and present their schedule. But they're aiming towards a designer selection panel in October, bringing on an architect. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that right now and just see if there's any questions. Seeing none. The one other thing I want to bring up, and hoping for a little input or discussion on this with MSBA, is specifically how it relates to Lab Array. So, with Lab Array right now, essentially, as I see, we have three options that we can do. The first would be continue with MSBA in the program that we're currently in. But that would mean for Lab Array, it would be a K-5 school with an enrollment of 495, which is nothing that we just saw from DLR Group. It would be a whole different process. The other option that we would look at, or the other opportunity there, would be the middle school, but I just think it would be too big, so that's why I didn't really talk about it. The other avenues with Lab Array would be to not go with MSBA and build the preschool kindergarten program on our own. And then the third option would be the preschool kindergarten option, and then go back to MSBA and go through the enrollment analysis again and get recertified for an enrollment for pre-K and K. So essentially for us, in the coming months and stuff like that, depending on whether Lab Array is purchased by the town, these are kind of decision points we're going to need to start thinking about and having discussions on. So I know we haven't talked about those kind of three avenues up till tonight, but I want to, at our kind of follow-on meetings, is keep this on our radar, because I think at some point it will pop up and we'll be asked our opinions on some of these. So with those three options, I'll just kind of open it up to see if people have any discussion points or anything they want to talk about. Yep, Carrie.
I guess for me, due to the fact that I've been on this committee for more years than I'd like to admit, I'm curious what these various options would add to the schedule.
Yeah, so if it was, let's just talk option one, we'll call it option one, doing MSBA with the current program would be on, it would be the same schedule because we would be working,
Right.
Towards what we're doing. If it was option two, call it the pre-K, K option without MSBA, kind of on our own, It'd probably be that would be the fastest track for everything that's there. And then option three, if we were to go back to MSBA, redo the enrollment, I would say at a minimum, we'd be delayed a year to kind of go back, redo the enrollment analysis, go through all the process that's got us to here, reselect an OPM potentially, and then also have to reselect an architect. So that would be my take on it. If other people may have different feelings, feel free to weigh in.
And just one more question about funding. If we were to go with option three, does MSBA provide funds for pre-K and K?
They do for K, and I believe they do for a component of pre-K. I don't believe it's a full, the full reimbursement that we see for the upper classrooms, but there is, from what I remember, just from the previous program that we were doing at Gow Road, there was a component of pre-K that was being reimbursed.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Nick, go for it.
Just to clarify, we would have to do some work with the MSBA, but it does sound like pre-K would be fully reimbursed as part of this potential program. It is a question I posed to them. Obviously, before any decision points, we would just kind of vet that out and confirm that. But they treat it that as a regular reimbursement of a regular classroom, like they would for any others. They do not participate in fixture and furnishings and other equipment for preschool, but they do reimburse them the construction costs. But obviously, we would verify that before we were at decision point time. But it should be a little bit more than what Sean alluded to, but we still need to just kind of fill that out for sure.
Yeah, and just on that one too, Nick, knowing the pre-K enrollment, or at least for the current options that we have, it's up to us to define them. So if you recall, like the numbers are 495 plus pre-K or 660 for middle school plus pre-K. There's no defined enrollment numbers. I'm just talking aloud. I don't know, like, is there a maximum that they would do for pre-K enrollment for reimbursement? It's just something that just popped in my head. What was
No, I think that's what we need to nail down. But they have stated to us that if it's part of the district program, they will reimburse for it as long as it's part of the district's kind of delivery of education.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Would we have to go through a separate process? Like, say we were to pull out all of the administration from the high school and Pierce and put it, say you reshuffle to make those schools a little bit more palatable from enrollment, would that get kind of combined in? Like if we were to abandon the middle school plan, like I'm just trying to figure out, like I'm obviously thinking administration would go in the mansion. Like how do we account for that expense? Because there's going to be some adjustments that need to happen in all the schools, right, to make this work, to satisfy the town's enrollment issue.
Yeah, so what you're saying, Carrie, is like when we pull pre-K and K out of the elementary schools and redo the elementary schools back to other spaces.
Right, and even if you were to say, okay, the mansion's huge, we can probably take, the superintendent and put them in the mansion and reuse that space in the high school.
Yeah, that one for me, mainly just because we haven't gone that deep on this option.
No, I know.
Yet.
I'm kind of thinking out loud because when they start talking about options for the mansion, I immediately thought, well, it might satisfy those that were, when I started this process, I thought that the middle school and the high schools were going to need some help, not just the elementary schools. So just something to think about as we're thinking about everything else right now. Just throwing it on the radar.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Nathan, you get your hand up.
Yeah, I was just following on Carrie's first question about timeline. I didn't even bother trying to pull this up, Sean, because I was hoping you had it memorized. I was thinking about the spreadsheet you built like several months ago where you mapped out potential timing implications of going down MSBA funding route. And I feel like you estimated that the school would be open in approximately 2031 under the current path we're on, MSBA funding for the Guile Road site. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'll just go off the top of my head because I kind of have it memorized, so I appreciate you giving me that credit. But I think the intention of or what PMA had laid out is for the debt exclusion under the current MSBA program that we're on is aiming for a fall 2028 vote on that. So that would get us funding and get us into kind of final design. I would assume 2 to 3 years out, a school would be open. So that 2031 number that you're throwing out there, Nathan, is probably a safe number to have. That would be for, the project that we'd be looking at Gow Road right now.
Yeah. So then a spitball approximation for MSBA funded Labouré site would be 2032, 2033.
Yeah, if you just call it a year to year and a half delay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Aqua, you have your hand up?
Thank you. Just following up too on some of the last comments that Kerry made, it sounds like there are quite a number of complexities that we have to look at if we do acquire Labouré. What do we do with the mansion? And if we use the mansion well, do we still have all the concerns that we had initially? Would that solve the problem? And maybe also the funding, would the government funding authority still see us as have we already passed the level where they can pull funds saying, okay, you've solved your problem, we don't need to support you anymore? How does that play if we do acquire the property?
So yeah, so what we're looking at is essentially let's start with if we acquire the property, right? So if the select board decides to purchase the property and is successful in purchasing the property, there's a decision point that we'll have to at some point weigh in on. I'm assuming. So that decision point is kind of a three-way thing. So it would be what it was is option one that we were talking about. Aqua was continue with MSBA for what we're doing right now. If we continue with MSBA, we can only do two options that were approved for a K-5 school or a middle school. And either of those options we could put on Labouré. We haven't looked at what a program would look like or anything, but that would be part of that feasibility study that we'd hire an architect on. So that would be, under the current, call it umbrella with MSBA. The second option would be we buy Labouré, we want to put preschool, kindergarten in there, and we decide we don't want to go with MSBA anymore. We exit out of the program and go on our own path, which would be the fastest route. But we would forego the funding or the reimbursements that we get from MSBA. And then finally, the third option would be go back to MSBA, take that umbrella that I was talking about before, enlarge it so that we could now look at preschool, kindergarten as part of that. But to do so, the MSBA would have to do an enrollment analysis, and then that would take probably about a year to redo it or just get back to the point that we're at right now with MSBA. So I hope that answers your question.
So there is no chance of MSBA saying, hypothetically, you now have a property and you would solve your problem and you're no more qualified to be on this program.
No. So yeah, with MSBA, we're still in their program. Whether
Okay.
even if we purchase the property, I think what it does is when we purchase the property, it tells MSBA we have an additional site that we can look at as an opportunity. So like right now for us as sites, we have, essentially Gow Road, even though we could look at other ones. But I think if we purchase this property and the town now owns or controls that property, it's another list of properties that we can add into that analysis with MSBA. So the purchase of the property wouldn't immediately vacate us from MSBA right now.
Thank you, Sean.
No problem. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So
Just one comment,
Yes.
and it's in response to Carrie's comment about how long some of you have worked on this committee. For what it's worth, coming from someone who's been on select board only 3 months, but who's been, kind of observed the school building committee's work for some time. I remember when the school building committee was formed because it was 2 months before my son was born back in February of 2019. So, I appreciate the work that you guys have put in, and especially as we kind of go down, kind of considering another option here. Just wanted to convey that.
Yeah, it was funny when the committee started. I think it was 7 years ago. I didn't have this much gray hair. Now it's all popping in. So it's been great. But yeah, no, yeah. I mean, for all of us, I mean, yeah, we one thing I wanted to say to everybody tonight is obviously everybody's either on vacation or enjoying their summers, and similar to the architects, this is a lot to ask of this committee, over this past month, and yet we've got one more meeting in 2 weeks. But it's just reflective of everybody's commitment to this project. So from my point of view, I just want to say thank you to everybody. So unless anybody has any other comments in regards to the MSBA, we can move on to our next agenda item, which is our next meeting, which is in 2 weeks. So, as Shanali and Jana had indicated, they'll have their final plans to us. So they're going to get us over those revised slides tomorrow. And then if you have any comments, please just send them back to me. I'll consolidate them all and send them over to them. So that way they're just not getting peppered with multiple emails and trying to consolidate them themselves. So any questions on our next meeting, in 2 weeks or anything like that? All right. So hearing none, that's a good thing. And we'll check everybody's schedule, see if we're fully remote or in person or hybrid or, however it works. But again, thank you guys all for jumping on tonight. Last thing on the agenda is adjournment. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. And we'll just do a roll call vote based on who I see on here. Peter Obersheimer.
Yes.
Carrie Hurley.
Yes.
Nathan Hutto.
Yes.
Aqua Bong.
Yes.
Scott Tereshek.
Yes.
Sean O'Rourke. Yes. And Tim Lombard. I think he's the last one.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Sean.
Yeah.
Bye.